Chapter 15 The Second Miracle. Matilda did not join the rush to get out of the classroom. After the other children had all disappeared, she remained at her desk quiet and thoughtful. She knew that she had to tell somebody about what happened with the glass. She couldn't possibly keep a gigantic secret like that bottled up inside her. What she needed was one person, one wise, sympathetic grown-up, who could help her to understand the meaning of her extraordinary happening. Neither her mother nor father would be of any use to her at all. If they believed her story, doubtful they would, it was almost certain that they'd fail to realize what an astounding event it was that had taken place in the classroom that afternoon. On the spur of the moment, Matilda decided the one person likely to confide in her was Miss Honey. Matilda and Miss Honey were now the only two left in the classroom, and Miss Honey had seated herself at the table, and she was riffling through some papers. She looked up and said, "Well, Matilda, aren't you going to go outside with the others?" Matilda said, "Please, may I talk to you for a moment?" "Of course you may. What's troubling you?" "Something very peculiar happened to me, Miss Honey." Miss Honey became instantly alert. Ever since the two disastrous meetings she had recently had about Matilda, the first with the headmistress and the second with Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood, Miss Honey had been thinking a great deal about the child, wondering how she could help her. Here Matilda was, sitting in the classroom, curiously and excited on her face, and asking if she could have a private talk. Miss Honey had never seen her looking so wide-eyed and peculiar before. "Yes, Matilda," she said, "tell me what has happened to you that is so peculiar." "Miss Trunchbull isn't going to expel me, is she?" Matilda asked. "Because it wasn't me who put the creature in the jug of water. I promise you it wasn't." "I know it wasn't," Miss Honey said. "Am I going to be expelled?" "I think not," Miss Honey said. "The headmistress has simply got a little overexcited. That's all." "Good," Matilda said. "But that isn't what I want to talk to you about." "What do you want to talk to me about, Matilda?" "I want to talk to you about the glass of water with the creature in it. You saw it spilling over Miss Trunchbull, didn't you?" "I did indeed." "Well, Miss Honey, I didn't touch it. I never went near it." "I know you didn't," Miss Honey said. "You heard me telling the headmistress that you couldn't have possibly been you." "Ah, but it was me, Miss Honey," Matilda said. "That's exactly what I want to talk to you about." Miss Honey paused and looked carefully at the child. "I don't think I quite follow you," she said. "I got so angry at being accused of something I hadn't done that I made it happen." "You made it happen, Matilda?" "I made the glass of water tip over." "I still don't quite understand what you mean," Miss Honey said gently. "I did it with my eyes," Matilda said. "I was staring and wishing it to tip over, and then my eyes went all hot and funny, and some sort of power came out of them, and the glass toppled over." Miss Honey continued to look steadily at Matilda through her steel-rimmed spectacles, and Matilda looked back at her as steadily. "I am still not following you," Miss Honey said. "Do you actually mean you willed the glass to tip over?" "Yes," Matilda said, "with my eyes." Miss Honey was silent for a moment, and she did not think Matilda was meaning to tell a lie. It was more likely that she was simply allowing her vivid imagination to run away with her. "You mean you were sitting there where you are now, and you told the glass to topple over, and it did?" "Something like that, Miss Honey, yes." "If you did that, that's just about the greatest miracle a person has ever performed since the time of Jesus." "I did it, Miss Honey. It's extraordinary." Though, Miss Honey, how often has a smiled children have flights of fantasy like this? She decided to put an end to it as gently as possible. "Could you do it again?" she asked, not unkindly. "I don't know," Matilda said, "but I think I might be able to." Miss Honey moved the now empty glass to the middle of the table. "Should I put water in it?" she asked, smiling. "I don't think it matters," Matilda said. "Very well, then, go ahead and tip it over." "It may take some time." "Take all the time you want," Miss Honey said. "I am in no hurry." Matilda, sitting in the second row, about 10 feet away from Miss Honey, put her elbows on the desk and cupped her face in her hands. This time she gave the order to begin to tip, and right at the beginning, "Tip the glass," she ordered, but her lips didn't move. She made no sound. She simply shouted the words inside her head, and now she concentrated the whole of her mind and her brain and her will up into her eyes at once, but much more quickly than before. The electricity began to gather in her eyes, and the power beginning to surge, and the hotness coming to the eyeball. And then the millions of tiny invisible arms with hands on them were shooting out towards the glass, and without making a sound, she kept shouting inside her head, "Glass, go to glass to go over." She saw the wobble, and then it tilted, and then it toppled right over. And it fell with a tinkle onto the tabletop, 12 inches from Miss Honey's folded arms. Miss Honey's mouth dropped open, and her eyes stretched so wide that you could see the whites and all around. She'd not say a word. She couldn't. The shock of seeing a miracle performed had struck her dumb. She gasped, and leaning well away from it, now thought it might be a dangerous thing, and then she slowly lifted her head and looked at Matilda. She saw the child, white in the face and white as a paper, trembling all over, the eyes glazed, staring straight ahead and seeing nothing. The whole face was transfigured. The eyes were round and bright, and she was sitting there speechless, quite in beautiful blaze of silence. Miss Honey waited, trembling a little, herself watching the child, and she slowly stirred herself back to consciousness. And suddenly a click went in her face, and she looked almost sympathetic, calm. "I'm all right," she said and smiled. "I'm quite all right," Miss Honey said. "Don't be alarmed." "You seem so far away," Miss Honey whispered, awestruck. "I was flying past the stars on silver wings," Matilda said. "It was wonderful." Miss Honey was still gazing at the child in absolute wonderment, as though she were the creation of the beginning of the world and the first morning. "It went much quicker this time," Matilda said quietly. "It's not possible," Matilda was gasping. "I don't believe it. I simply don't believe it." She closed her eyes and kept them closed for quite a while, and then when she opened again, she thought she had gathered herself together. "Would you like to come back and have tea at my cottage?" she asked. "Oh, I'd love to," Matilda said. "Go gather up your things. I'll meet you outside in a couple minutes." "You won't tell anyone about this thing that I did, Miss Honey, will you?" "I wouldn't dream of it," Miss Honey said.